They say birthdays are meant for celebration, yet on mine, there was no cake, just a suitcase placed by the stairs and a forced smile from my daughter. "It is time for you to move on," she said, standing in the house I had bought, the house I paid for with nights and weekend shifts. Her husband stood nearby with his arms crossed, ready to escort me out as if I were a stranger. I grabbed the suitcase, left, and called my real estate agent. What they did not realize was that I had quietly removed my daughter's name from the property deed months earlier. By the time they noticed, the house was already sold. You will not believe what happened next. But before going further, tell us from where you were watching this story. For 49 years, I wore the same watch, a simple Timex gifted by my husband James the day I graduated as a nurse. The leather strap was replaced 3 times over the years, yet the dial remained untouched, faithfully marking the hours I spent caring for others. I worked 36 years at San Martin Hospital, mostly the night shift because it paid more, allowing me to save a little extra every month for the mortgage. I ate the same lunch every day, turkey sandwich on whole wheat bread, an apple and water from a thermos. Nothing fancy, but enough. When Karen was 7 years old, James died suddenly from a massive heart attack while mowing the lawn. I found him there still clutching the handlebar of the lawnmower seemed almost alive, as if it could rise on its own and finish the task if I waited long enough. That night, I held Karen close while she wept on my shoulder, promising her that everything would be all right and that I would always look after her. I worked extra shifts during weekends, turned down vacations, and patched clothes instead of buying new ones. By the time Karen finished high school, our modest bungalow on the outskirts of Valencia was fully paid off. I still remember her wedding day vividly. She wore my mother's lace veil, which I had patiently restored over 3 months under the soft glow of a lamp. How it shimmered, how bright her smile was. Joel's embrace before he walked down the aisle was unforgettable. He whispered to me that none of this would have been possible without me, Mom. Later, when I held newborn Lucy in my arms, I felt my life had come full circle. Every sacrifice had been worth it. Slowly, cracks began to appear. Missed dinners, impatient sighs whenever I gave advice. That Christmas I spent alone because their trip to Sierra Nevada was too important to miss. When they lost their home after Joel's business collapsed, I welcomed them without hesitation and said, "Stay as long as you need," adding Karen's name to the deed as a gesture of love and belonging. This is also their legacy. At first, they were thankful. Karen handled the shopping and Joel fixed the dripping faucet in the bathroom. But gratitude faded. The atmosphere had solidified into anticipation. My kitchen cabinets had been rearranged without asking me. My opinion about dinner no longer mattered. My favorite armchair was moved aside to make room for Joel's recliner. Small concessions piled up like dust in corners no one cared to sweep away. On my 74th birthday, I woke early to bake my own cake. Lemon with butter frosting, Karen's childhood favorite. As I mixed the batter, memories of her 5th birthday surfaced, how she insisted on helping decorate cupcakes, her tiny fingers sticky with sugar, her laughter filling the kitchen. I wondered if today I could bridge the distance that had grown between us. That morning, I paid special attention to my appearance. I chose a blue dress reserved for special occasions and tied my silver hair into a neat bun. 74 was not a milestone many celebrated, but each year felt priceless, a gift never guaranteed. The house was unusually quiet as I descended the stairs, my hand grazing the banister James had installed many years ago. I hoped to find Karen in the kitchen, maybe placing candles atop the cake I had baked myself. Instead, I found her and Joel standing stiffly in the living room, their posture betraying a rehearsed script. Lucy sat on the couch, her gaze fixed on the floor. "Happy birthday, Mom," Karen said. Her smile was tight and never reached her eyes. She stepped aside, revealing a large suitcase I recognized from the attic. "What is this?" I asked, though part of me already understood. Perhaps it was a mother's intuition or simply the sum of countless small exclusions. "We have found a wonderful place for you," Karen said in that sharp, patronizing tone people use with children or the elderly. "Magnolia Residence. It's time for your transition, Mom." The word transition hung between us, clinical and cold, as if all my life in this house, the home I had built, could be boiled down to a simple relocation process. "They have activities and nurses, and you will no longer have to worry about maintaining this big house," Joel added, crossing his arms over his chest. "It is the best option for everyone." "But this is my home," I whispered, my fingers tracing the worn face of the watch on my wrist, seeking comfort. "I do not need assistance, Mom." Karen sighed, exchanging a look with Joel that made it clear they had expected this response. "You are getting older. We worry about those stairs. And honestly, wouldn't you be happier in a place with people your own age?" I glanced at Lucy, who finally looked up. Her eyes were red, and her lips pressed tight in a line that reminded me of James when he felt cornered. "I do not know," Grandma said quietly. "I found out this morning." Claudia shot her daughter a warning look. "Lucy, we've already discussed this. Grandma requires proper care and we need our own space. The decision has been made. Have you arranged everything?" I asked, with a voice stronger than how I actually felt, without consulting me at all. "We have already paid the deposit," Mauricio confirmed. "Your room is ready and most of your personal belongings are packed." He pointed at the suitcase with a smile that barely hid the coldness in his eyes. "Only the essentials for now. We can bring the rest later once you have settled in." I glanced around the living room. The walls I had painted with my own hands, the photographs capturing decades of life, the mark on the carpet where James used to stand adjusting the thermostat. Every corner held memories that would never fit into any suitcase. "What about my garden?" I asked, thinking about the roses I had tended for 30 years and the tomato plants just beginning to bloom. "Mom, be practical," said Claudia with a disdainful tone. "You can't handle gardening anymore. Besides, Mauricio plans to turn that area into a patio for gatherings." Something inside me broke. It was not exactly anger, but a deep and quiet understanding. For all these years, I thought I was making room for my daughter in my life and home, but in truth, I had gradually allowed myself to be erased. I approached the suitcase and ran my hand over its surface. I remembered buying it for our family trip to the coast when Lucy was 10 years old. How excited she was while packing, how carefully she had arranged her swimsuit and sandals. "When am I supposed to leave?" I asked in a calm tone that did not betray the storm brewing inside me. "The car arrives at 2, said Mauricio, glancing at his watch. "You have time to say goodbye to the house. We already have an appointment with the center's director this very afternoon." I lifted the suitcase. It was lighter than I expected, a sign that the essentials packed inside were minimal. "Grandma," Lucy started, rising from the sofa, but Claudia placed a hand on her shoulder to stop her. "Let Grandma process this," she whispered, as if reciting from a script. The transition counselor said she might need her space. I slowly climbed the stairs with the suitcase softly bumping against each step. In my room, I placed it on the bed and opened it. Inside, there were a few faded blouses, 2 pairs of pants, underwear, and my toiletry kit. No photos, no memories, nothing that truly represented my life. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands clasped in my lap, and allowed myself a single deep, trembling breath. Just one. Then I straightened my back, wiped my eyes, and began to think clearly for the first time in years. They had no idea. 6 months earlier, James had visited Leonardo Reyes after overhearing Mauricio on the phone, mentioning that they were simply waiting for the old lady to relocate so they could finally claim the place as their own. That very day, James quietly removed Claudia's name from the deed, a step Leonardo facilitated without any trouble. "You are fully capable," he assured him. "This house belongs to you. You can do whatever you want with it." At that moment, it was not out of spite, but rather caution, the instinct of a mother who realizes her daughter no longer wishes to protect her. From the drawer of the dresser, James took the updated deed and placed it in his bag along with the checkbook and Doris's phone number. Then he closed the suitcase without adding a single other item. When he went downstairs, he found Claudia and Mauricio whispering in the kitchen, their voices stopping as soon as he crossed the threshold. Lucy sat alone in the living room with a deeply sad expression. James calmly said, "I would like some time alone before the car arrives. Could you give me that space?" Claudia seemed surprised but nodded. "Of course, Mom. We will go get something to eat and be back before the car arrives." She grabbed her bag, almost relieved to be able to leave. "Come on, Lucy. I think I'm going to stay," said Lucy quietly but firmly. "Lucy, now is not the time," Mauricio started. "It's her birthday," she interrupted. "I'm staying with Grandma." There was a tense moment after which Claudia nodded with a clenched jaw. "All right, we go back to 1:30. As soon as they left, Lucy ran towards me with tears streaming down her cheeks. "Grandma, I'm so sorry. I had no idea they were planning this." I took her hands, noticing how much they had grown since those days when she would cross the street holding my fingers. "It is not your fault, dear, but this is wrong," I said firmly. "This is your home. You cannot let them do this to you." I squeezed her hands gently. "I need you to listen carefully, Lucy, and trust me. Can you do that?" She nodded, wiping tears from her face with the back of her hand. "Good. Now I will make some calls, and when your parents come back, I will leave with that suitcase. I need you to act as if everything is happening just as they planned." "But where are you going? You cannot go to that place, Grandma." "I am not going," I reassured her with a small smile appearing on my lips. "I am going to Doris's house, and tomorrow I have an appointment with my real estate agent." Her face showed confusion. "Your real estate agent? I do not understand." "You will understand," I promised as I picked up the phone. Sometimes love means knowing when to stay and when to leave, and sometimes it means recognizing the right moment to walk away. As I dialed Doris's number, I felt a strange lightness, as if the suitcase by the stairs had set me free rather than trapped me. For the first time in many years, I was making a choice that put my dignity first. Although my heart ached for everything I had lost, something new was beginning to rise from its shadow. A calm, determined strength I had forgotten I possessed finally gave me the courage to say goodbye. Telling and preparing this story took us a long time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It helps us a great deal. Now let us return to the story. The phone rang 3 times before Doris answered. Her hoarse and familiar voice was as comforting as ever. "Happy birthday, you old crazy woman," she said without any introduction. "Don't tell me you are calling to cancel our lunch tomorrow." "Actually," I replied, glancing sideways at Lucy, who was silently watching me. "I'm calling to ask if I could stay with you for a few days, starting this very afternoon." There was a brief silence. The joking tone disappeared, replaced by the sharp concern that made Doris an excellent preschool teacher for over 40 years. "What has happened?" My birthday gift this year was a suitcase and a one-way ticket home. San Magnolia, I answered, keeping my voice steady. Doris responded with several colorful expressions that made Lucy's eyes widen. "I will be ready by 2, I added as if Doris had simply agreed. "And Doris, I need Leonardo's number again. Leonardo, the real estate agent." I heard her beginning to connect the dots. "Me Waker, what are you up to?" "Justice," I replied simply, served cold but with all the dignity it deserves. After hanging up, I turned around and found Lucy looking at me with a different expression, as if she suddenly saw me for who I truly was. "Are you going to sell the house?" she said. It was not a question, but a certainty. "Yes," I answered. "Can you do it?" I thought that Mom's name was also on the deed. I walked to my bag, took out the folder with the updated deed, and handed it to her. It is no longer there. She opened it carefully, reading the legal document with all its official stamps and signatures. You did this 6 months ago, after hearing Mauricio talk about his plans for when I was no longer here. I was sure. I didn't know exactly what they were plotting, but I sensed it was nothing good. Lucy closed the folder, her young face serious. They are going to be furious. Yes, I nodded. They will be angry. Fine, said Lucy with a small, fierce smile, so much like James's that it made my chest tighten. What do you want me to do? Just pretend everything is normal when they come back. Let them believe their plan is working. I don't want confrontations today. And after today, I gently touched her hand. After today, I only need you to remember that no matter what happens between your parents and me, it does not change how I feel about you. Her eyes filled with tears again. I want to go with you. Do you have classes? I reminded her kindly. And your apartment at the university. Your life is just beginning, Lucy. Mine is still adjusting. The rest of the time, alone, we spent preparing. I wrote down Doris's address and my cell number. I gathered my most important documents, birth certificate, health insurance, list of medications, and placed them in the bag along with the house deed. The deed was not the only paper I had been organizing carefully. When Clara and Mauricio came back, right on time at 1:30, they found us sitting calmly in the living room, the suitcase by the door, my bag beside me. Are you ready? Clara asked in a tone almost surprised. That is good. Proactive. I have always believed in facing reality head on, I answered as I slowly stood up from the chair. Lucy had been keeping me company. Clara gave her daughter a curious look, which Lucy returned with perfectly feigned innocence. Just a little birthday time with Grandma. The car should arrive any moment now, Mauricio said, checking his watch again. That nervous tic had become more frequent as his financial troubles got worse. I called Doris, I informed. She will come to pick me up. Mom, we had already arranged this. I prefer Doris to take me, I interrupted firmly. She is my oldest friend, and I want her support today. Clara sighed with that familiar breath she used when she thought I was being difficult without reason. All right, but we should go. Let me introduce you to the entire head of the center. That will not be necessary, I said. I can handle the initial paperwork by myself. The flicker of relief in her eyes confirmed what I had already suspected. Clara had no intention of coming with me to San Magnolia. This transition was designed to be swift and smooth without any unnecessary fuss or sentimentality. If you are sure, Mauricio said quickly before Clara could respond, they will assist you in settling in. We can visit you over the weekend once you have adjusted. The doorbell rang. Doris was punctual as always. Not yet, I admitted. I never found the right moment to tell her. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. Then it will be a surprise, Leonard said at last, his tone neutral but with a slight hint of understanding. Legally, everything is in order. You are the sole owner. How long do you think it would take to sell it? I asked. That house is in a highly sought-after area, he replied. I know at least 3 families who would be thrilled to move in as early as tomorrow if the price is reasonable. Then put up the sign, I said, crossing one leg over the other with renewed calmness. A fair price, but sell it quickly. Do you want us to notify the current occupants? I looked out through Doris's living room window where the first signs of spring were starting to bloom. Not yet let them receive the official notice. Understood. I will send them the documents. They will prepare the documents this very afternoon for signing. Would you like me to come by in person to collect them? Doris asked, as she and I would both be here. I ended the call with steady hands. So what now? Doris inquired as she entered carrying 2 cups of tea. It all starts this week. I told you today is not the end, I replied, raising my cup in a casual toast. It is a beginning. I chuckled softly. Well, I suppose the news will spread soon. I can list the house for sale immediately, but I should warn you if you want a quick sale, we might have to price it below market value. I thought about the savings account I had kept separate from household expenses, as well as the funds quietly, accumulated while supporting Karen and Joel financially. That works for me, I said. I value speed more than profit. Then can I send the photographer tomorrow afternoon? We could have it online before the weekend. After hanging up, I noticed Doris watching me with a mix of worry and admiration. Are you sure about this, Maybelle? It is your home. I touched my wristwatch, an automatic gesture that always calmed me. It was my home, yet now it had become a place full of people who did not appreciate me. Where will you go after staying with me? She pressed. Honestly, I hadn't thought that far ahead. I was so focused on taking the first steps of my plan. I do not know yet. Something smaller. Perhaps a place where I can start fresh. Doris nodded in understanding. Understood. You can stay here for as long as you need. We have contacted Samantha. She should be aware of what is coming. I did not speak firmly with her because I do not want to put her in that position. The less she knows, the less she will have to hide from Karen and Joel. That night, lying in Doris's guest room bed with its floral quilt and a mattress more old than comfortable, I finally allowed myself to feel everything I had suppressed throughout the day. The pain, the betrayal, the harsh truth that my own daughter saw me as a burden to be moved aside rather than as a mother deserving care. I thought about Karen as a child, climbing into Sam's lap with illustrated stories about how she clung to me at James's funeral when I promised I would always take care of her. The pride in her eyes when I placed the nurse's cap on her at graduation, following in my footsteps. When did that bond break? At what moment did her ambition and Joel's influence turn her into someone who could hand her mother a suitcase on her birthday? I wept quietly, tears soaked up by a pillow that was not mine. I gave myself that one night to mourn what was lost. Tomorrow would be for what was necessary, to recover not my relationship with Karen perhaps, but my dignity, my independence, and my sense of self-worth. My phone vibrated with a message. It was from Samantha. They believe you are at Magnolia Gardens. They have been discussing all night the renovations they want to make. I hate this, Grandma. According to Samantha, Karen and Joel believed that I was adjusting in Magnolia Gardens, too busy with social activities to answer any calls. They neither visited me nor even contacted the center to check on how I was doing. Their trust that I would comply without question was complete. That trust shattered completely. On Thursday afternoon, when Leonardo's team put up the for sale sign in the front yard, a large, impossible-to-ignore message declaring I had reclaimed what was mine appeared. Samantha messaged me at 4:17 p.m. saying, "They just put the sign up. Mom is calling Dad. Maybe you should turn off your phone for a while." 3 minutes later, my phone started ringing. Karen's name flashed on the screen. I did not answer. It rang again immediately and then once more. Joel's number appeared next, followed again by Karen. A flood of messages followed. "Mom, what is happening? There is a for sale sign in our yard. Answer the phone. You must be at Doris's house now. The center says you never registered. This is completely unacceptable." I watched the notifications pile up, feeling oddly detached from the panic they represented. Doris glanced over my shoulder, eyebrows raised. "Quite a show," she commented. "It's only beginning," I replied, silencing the phone completely and placing it face down on the center table. They still have not gone to the property registry. So, what do you think they will do now? I took a moment to reflect, drawing on decades of experience with my daughter's temperament. They will come here. Karen has always chosen confrontation over uncertainty. Doris nodded, settling calmly into her armchair. "Then, we better be prepared. Hey, I still have some of those butter cookies you like." Just as I expected, the doorbell rang loudly at 5:48. Through the front window, I saw Karen's silver SUV parked poorly, partially blocking the neighbor's driveway. Dory stood up to answer, but I placed my hand on her arm. "Let me handle this," I whispered. When I opened the door, Karen and Joel stood on the porch, their faces taut with a mix of anger and confusion. Karen's once perfect hairstyle was now disheveled, as though she had run her hands through her hair repeatedly. "What have you done?" she snapped without greeting, trying to push her way inside. I stood firm, blocking her path. "I have decided to sell my house." "Your house?" Joel shouted, raising his voice. "That house belongs to both of us. Karen's name is on the deed." "Actually," I said calmly, "it no longer is." For a moment, they simply stared at me in disbelief. Then Karen's face went pale. "That cannot be," she whispered. I informed her that the property registry office closes at 5:30. "You can verify it yourself, although I assume you have already tried to get in touch with Leonardo Reyes." Joel's expression shifted from anger to calculation. "When did you do this?" "6 months ago," I answered, after hearing your plans to renovate the house once the elderly woman moved out. "Those were your exact words, if I am not mistaken." His face flushed red. Karen turned to him, momentarily distracted from her fury towards me. "You said that was not true," Joel protested weakly. "She is twisting things around. The house belongs to me." He continued, ignoring their exchange. "Legally, it has been mine since November, and I am now putting it up for sale." "You cannot do this," Karen insisted, regaining her tone. "We live there. You cannot simply sell it without consulting us." "Why not?" I asked plainly. "Isn't that exactly what you tried to do with me yesterday? Relocate me without any discussion. Get rid of my home without consulting me. That was different. We were thinking about your well-being." "No," I corrected gently. "You were thinking of yourselves, just as I am thinking about myself now." Joel stepped forward, his stance threatening despite the forced smile he tried to maintain. "Listen, Mabel, I think we all started off on the wrong foot here. Why don't we go home and discuss this calmly? I am sure we can come up with an agreement that works for everyone." "The deal is simple," I replied. "The house is up for sale. The listing will be published tomorrow morning. You have 30 days from the closing date to vacate." 30 days. Karen's voice rose almost to a shout. "Where are we supposed to go in 30 days? I thought about the suitcase they had packed for me, the casual assumption that I would just vanish from their lives without warning. I guess they would have to figure it out just as they expected me to. "This is different," Karen insisted. "We have jobs and obligations," and I remained silent, sensing the first crack in my composure. I had friends, my garden, my volunteer work at the hospital, a life you decided was expendable. "Mom, be reasonable." "I think I am being extraordinarily reasonable," I said, regaining my calm. "The house is mine. I'm selling it. They have 30 days after closing, which is generous considering they originally offered 0 days. Joel's fake smile had completely vanished. "Will you regret this?" he said quietly. "We can challenge this. Elder abuse. Coercion." "I don't think so," Doris said from behind me, finally joining the conversation. "Mabel's doctor just completed a cognitive assessment last month. Perfect score." There was a long pause before she replied. I believe maybe they needed this dose of reality. But Grandma, where will they go? Dad's business is still struggling and they have no savings. The same worry that led me to welcoming them into my home 18 months ago led me to reconsider the situation, but I rejected it firmly. Both are grown-ups with stable jobs, Samantha. They will find a way, just as I had to manage. Joel mentioned that there are already people interested in viewing the house. He added, there are 3 tours scheduled for tomorrow. I had not shared Joel's number. "How do you know that?" I asked. "I called him," she confessed. She wanted to fully grasp what was going on. Of course, she did. Samantha had always been resourceful, determined to gather information before forming an opinion. In that, she resembled me more than her mother. "Are you upset with me?" I asked her directly. She paused for a moment before replying, "No. I feel sorry that things came to this, but I understand why you acted that way. Grandma was treated terribly." "What do you wish for, dear?" I inquired. "I wish families wouldn't hurt each other like this and that Mom could see what she has done." I thought of Karen's face at my door, her genuine surprise and the hint of betrayal in her features. "I believe she's beginning to realize it," I whispered softly. "It will take her longer to fully understand." After hanging up, I sat on Doris's porch swing, watching the dusk descend over her well-tended garden. The evening breeze carried the scent of her hydrangeas, a sweet backdrop for my restless thoughts. I was being too harsh. I had let pain drive me toward revenge instead of forgiveness. Justice. I kept turning those questions over in my mind, examining them from every possible angle. No, I finally concluded. This was not revenge, it was survival. For far too long, I had allowed Karen and Joel's needs to take precedence over my own. I had tolerated being erased as an individual in the name of maternal love. That complacency nearly cost me everything: my home, my dignity, my very identity. The suitcase they handed me carried more than just clothes. Inside was their complete judgment of my worth. In that moment of absolute clarity, I finally realized that no sacrifice would ever be enough, and no love could fill the void left by their arrogance. The house I left behind was merely a physical symbol of a deeper truth. I deserved far better than what had been offered to me, and now, no matter how painful the journey, I would claim that better future for myself. Friday morning arrived bathed in the gentle golden light, typical of autumn in Granada. I woke early, my body still following a lifetime of habits. For a fleeting moment of confusion, I reached out for the bedside lamp that was no longer there, finding nothing but empty air instead of the familiar base. Then reality settled in again. I was in Carmen's guest room, voluntarily displaced from my home of 42 years. My phone lit up, showing 7 missed calls from Laura, 3 from Javier, and a text message from Sophia. First, the visit was scheduled for 10 in the morning. Mom and Dad refused to come out. James might need assistance. I sighed as I sent a quick reply. "I will handle it." After a light breakfast with Karen, who declared that she would not miss this encounter for anything, we drove to my house. The silver Lexus belonging to James was already parked by the curb, and he stood nearby looking quite uneasy. Next to him was a young couple, the woman clearly expecting, both dressed in the casual yet expensive fashion typical of Granada's growing professional class. Laura and Joel's car was at the entrance, a clear sign of their intent to block the visit. I parked behind James and approached him with Karen half a step behind me. "Ms. Rodriguez," James said with obvious relief, "these are the Hernandez family. They are very interested in seeing the property." "It is not available," Laura shouted from the porch, where she and Joel had stationed themselves like guards. "There has been a misunderstanding." I turned toward the young couple with an apologetic smile. "I am Isabel Rodriguez, the owner. There is no misunderstanding, just a family disagreement. Would you mind giving us a few minutes before the visit?" The woman glanced at her husband, then at her watch. "We have another appointment at 11. This will not take long," I assured them. James led them back to their car while Karen and I neared the house. Laura and Joel stayed firmly in place. On the porch, with arms folded, standing in identical defiant poses, I said calmly, stopping at the foot of the steps, "They need to leave." "This is our house," James replied. "We are not going anywhere." "It is my house," I corrected him, "and it is for sale. These people have an appointment to see it. Cancel it, Laura demanded. We have consulted a lawyer. You cannot sell a primary residence without properly notifying the occupants. I have given notice, I said. 30 days from closing. That is not what the law says, James retorted. We have rights as tenants. They are not tenants, I pointed out. They have never paid rent, never signed a lease. They are guests who have overstayed their welcome. Laura shuddered slightly at this description. We are family. Yes, I nodded softly. We are family, which is why your betrayal hurts even more. James stepped forward, lowering his voice. Look, Isabel, let's be reasonable. We know the Magnolia home was a mistake. We handled it poorly. But selling the house, that is an exaggeration. Exaggeration? I asked. You plan to evict me without consulting me, keep my house without consent, and now selling what legally belongs to me is an exaggeration. Laura exploded, finally losing composure. We need this house. We cannot afford to move right now. You know that. I needed my home too, I replied firmly. My security, my dignity, my feeling of belonging. They must have considered that while packing my suitcase. Neither one of them knew what to say. Karen cleared her throat on purpose. The couple was waiting, and the pregnant woman appeared to urgently need the restroom. Tick-tock. Lucy gave a sharp glance but said nothing. They had two choices. I declared, leave now and allow the visit, or compel me to call the police to remove them from a property that belongs solely to me. You wouldn't do that, Laura whispered with wide, amazed eyes. I never imagined you would attempt to confine me to a nursing home without warning, I replied. Yet here we are, uncovering new layers in our relationship. Joel placed a hand on Laura's shoulder. Let's go for a walk and return later. But we are making a scene, she whispered. That does not help us. Begrudgingly, Laura let him guide her down the stairs. She paused as she passed me. This is not finished, she murmured, trembling. I haven't kicked anyone out, I responded. I have only refused to be discarded. They left in the car just as Luis came back with the Hernandez family. The visit proceeded without any issues. The couple was delighted with the character of the house and its location. I stayed outside with Karen, unwilling to wander through rooms filled with cherished memories and recent wounds. They seem like nice people, Karen noted as the couple walked through the garden. The baby is due soon. January, he said. New parents. I nodded while watching the young woman gently touch the lattice where my roses were growing. Would this house be good for them? A fresh start for a family. Lucy arrived just as the visit ended, her bicycle skidding slightly on the gravel path. Her cheeks were flushed from pedaling, and her backpack bounced on her back as she hurriedly dismounted. Grandma, I came as soon as I finished school. Mom and Dad caused some trouble. This morning they were furious. Nothing I couldn't handle, I assured her. They left when asked. Luis approached with the Hernandez family, both smiling broadly. Mrs. Delgado, the Hernandez family wants to submit an offer this very afternoon. They are very interested in the property. The young woman stepped forward shyly. It is a beautiful house. You can tell it has been cared for with great affection. Thank you, I said, touched by the sincerity in her voice. When they left with Luis to prepare the offer, Lucy, Carmen, and I sat on the porch steps. The very same steps where Karen and Javier had tried to refuse me entry barely an hour ago. So, can it be sold quickly? Lucy asked, toying with a loose thread on her jeans. It is possible, I confirmed. Luis says the market is very active right now. She nodded with a frown. And where will you go, Grandma? After what happened with Carmen. I mean, I don't know yet, I admitted. Something smaller for sure. Maybe one of those new apartments by the river. What will happen to Mom and Dad? I sighed, feeling the burden my choices placed on their young shoulders. They will find a place, Lucy. They are grown-ups with good incomes. Not really. she muttered softly. I mean capable, but Dad's financial consulting business has been struggling for years. That is why they moved in with you. Mom hesitated, glancing around as if afraid to be overheard. Mom was fired from the hospital 3 months ago. She has been pretending to go to work while actually sitting in cafes filling out job applications. That revelation hit me hard. I did not know about this. They did not want you to know, she confirmed. They felt ashamed, I think, and afraid you might ask them to help with expenses. I absorbed the information silently, letting it settle alongside all the other truths I had uncovered in recent days. Why are you telling me now? I pressed her more urgently. Because I am worried about them, Grandma. And because I believe you should know the whole truth before... She gestured vaguely toward the for sale sign. Everything changes forever. We fell silent for a moment as the autumn wind stirred the maples I had planted myself when Karen was a child. Their situation does not excuse what they tried to do to you, Carmen finally said, giving voice to what I was thinking. No, I nodded firmly. It does not excuse it, but it does provide context. Lucy looked at me with hope. So, could you reconsider? I reached for her hand and covered it with mine. It means that now I understand better, but understanding does not erase what happened, Lucy. They were ready to discard me despite everything we have shared, all that I have done. That cannot be fixed with just an explanation. But if they truly apologized, has your mother ever genuinely apologized for anything? I asked, softly. She frowned, thoughtful. Not that I remember. She always says things like, I am sorry you see it that way, or forgive me if you misunderstood me. Exactly. I nodded. Your mother has never taken responsibility for hurting others. It has always been someone else's fault, always an external misunderstanding. But this time, she might do it, she insisted. This time, it is serious. Yes, it is. And precisely because of that, I cannot pretend it did not happen. The sound of Karen and Javier's car arriving broke our conversation. The wheels squeaked on the gravel driveway. Karen was the first to get out. Her expression was cautious but calm, as if she had spent the last hour rehearsing what she was going to say. Mom. She started slowly climbing the steps. Can we talk alone? I looked at Carmen, who raised her eyebrows before standing up. I will wait in the car, she said. Take your time. Lucy also stood. I have to go to my next class. Will you be okay, Grandma? I will be fine, I assured her. We are just going to talk. Once they moved away, Karen sat beside me on the step, maintaining a careful space between us. We watched James standing near the mailbox, pretending to look at his phone while clearly keeping an eye on us. Then Karen broke the long silence. Lucy says you might get an offer today. The Hernandez family seems quite interested. I nodded in confirmation. She adjusted an invisible thread on her pants and said, I did not know you were removed from the property deed. When did that happen? In November, I replied. After hearing James talk about his plans once I was relocated, she shuddered. That should not have been said, but it was. I observed quietly, thinking the same as you, Mom, about the nursing home. Let's call it what it is, Karen. I interrupted her. It was an attempt to push me out of my own home so you could take over it. She did not deny this. We thought it would be better for everyone. You would be cared for with activities, people your age, and we would have space to renovate. Finally take over. Stop pretending that I mattered. Karen blushed. That is not fair. It is not, I whispered. The suitcase packed. The car waiting. The way you spoke to me as if I were a child being led to the unavoidable. We were only trying to help you, she insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. I stated firmly, you were helping yourselves. If you really cared about my well-being, you would have spoken with me. We could have explored options together. Instead, you presented me with a done deal on my birthday, expecting obedience just because you always received it before. You remained silent for a long moment. your eyes fixed on the garden path. Lucy told you, right? About my job, our situation. Yes, so you know we cannot leave now. We have nowhere to go, Mom. No savings, no opportunities. I studied your profile so much like mine from certain angles, yet completely foreign from others. I understand your desperation, I said carefully, but I will not accept that as a reason to justify what you tried to do to me. What do you want from me? You asked in a barely trembling voice. An apology. All right. I am sorry I surprised you. I am sorry I did not handle it better. That is not an apology, Karen. That is you regretting that your plan failed. You turned fully toward me, anger flashing in your eyes. What do you expect then? You have cornered us. We are about to be homeless because you chose to take revenge on your family. Do you really see it that way? I asked, genuinely curious. As revenge? How else then? We made a mistake and you are punishing us by selling our home. That is not your home, I corrected gently. It is my home, the house I maintained, paid for and cared for over 42 years. A house where you were welcome until you decided I no longer deserved to live here. That is not what happened. That is exactly what you decided, I interrupted. You decided that my needs, my connection to this place, my entire life here mattered less than your desire for more space. You were ready to discard me, Karen. That is not a mistake. It reveals your true nature. She pressed her lips into a thin line, offering no defense. I am not selling the house out of revenge, I continued after a pause. I am selling it because I finally realize that I deserve better than what you have given me. I deserve respect, consideration, and honesty. And it has been a long time since I have received any of that from you. And what about me? She asked with a tear sliding down her cheek. What about what I deserve? After everything I have been through, losing my job, watching Javier's business collapse, trying to keep everything afloat, I reached out, surprising both of them as I wiped the tear away with my thumb, a gesture from her childhood. You deserve the chance to stand on your own, to solve your problems without expecting me to sacrifice my dignity for your comfort. She pulled away from my touch, a mixture of pain and anger crossing her face. So that is it. After all we have been through, you just turn your back on us. I turn my back on being taken for granted, I clarified. On being seen as a resource instead of a person. On accepting disrespect in the name of family obligation. And yes, if we apologize and promise to do better. I thought quietly for a few seconds. Searching in her eyes for any sign of genuine remorse, I only found a desperate tactic. Words come easily, Karen, but what truly reveals the truth are actions. And what action could possibly change your mind now? She spat with bitterness. The house will be sold. We will end up on the street. What more do you want? I want you to understand, I said simply, not to regret having been caught or to fear the consequences. I want you to truly grasp what you tried to take from me and why that matters. She stood up abruptly, brushing off imaginary dust from her pants. Well, I hope you enjoy your victory, Mom. I hope it was worth destroying your family for this. I watched her walk away with her head held high despite the tears that now flowed freely. I felt a profound sadness, not for what I had done, which I still believed was necessary, but for what had been lost, for what had been eroded beyond repair. The gentle honk of Doris's car reminded me she was waiting. I rose slowly, casting one last glance at the porch, where I had spent so many summer afternoons at the garden. I tended through seasons of joy and grief at the windows that had framed my world for decades. Goodbye. I whispered not to the house itself, but to the life it had held. The beautiful and painful memories, the sacrifices that were worth it, and those that weren't. The love I gave, and the love that was never returned. It was a moment of truth, a time of consequences, a moment to face whatever would come. The Mendoza family's offer arrived that very evening, slightly below the initial asking price, but with few conditions and a closing date rapidly approaching. After a brief discussion with Leonardo, I agreed to it. The process of selling the property got underway. Inspections, paperwork, a signing scheduled in just 17 days. "This is quick," Doris remarked as we reviewed the calendar Leonardo had left us. "For a sale, yes," I answered, studying the dates that would officially end my connection to the house I had cherished for more than 40 years. As for what lies ahead, I am working on it. In the following days, Karen and Joel went through the common stages of grief. Denial expressed through another consultation with a lawyer who confirmed they had no legal grounds. Anger, showing in Karen's increasingly hostile text messages, and an attempt at negotiation they hoped to manage through Lucy, their reluctant intermediary. Watching their reactions filled me with a distant sadness. I recognized the pattern without letting it sway my resolve. 1 week after accepting the offer, I returned to the house with Javier to meet the appraiser. Karen and Joel had left during the appointment. A small courtesy. The situation was more chaotic than I had anticipated, but evidence of the disturbance was everywhere. Cupboards stood open, papers scattered over the dining room table, dishes piled high in the sink, clear signs of a life falling apart. "Mrs. Rivas left this for you," James said, handing me an envelope as the expert disappeared toward the attic. He asked me to make sure it reached its intended recipient. Inside, there was a letter penned in Karen's neat handwriting. The pressure of her pen was so intense, I could almost sense the restrained anger within the words. "Mom, I do not know if what I say will make any difference at this point, but I have to try. We are desperate. Joel has reached out to everyone he knows, searching for loans, temporary housing, anything at all. His business is crumbling. My license renewal is still pending, and I have 3 interviews scheduled, but nothing is certain. I know you are angry, and I know we have handled everything terribly, but the punishment you are imposing goes beyond what we deserve. This is not just about us. It is also about Samantha. She is caught in the middle of a conflict she did not create. If you go ahead with the sale, you will not just be selling a house, you will be selling the last 40 years of our relationship. Is that really what you want? There must be another way. Please, before it is too late, think about what you are doing to your family." Karen folded the letter carefully and returned it to the envelope. The expert emerged from the attic holding a clipboard, carefully checking his list of structural elements and potential faults. I watched him test outlet after outlet, feeling an uncanny resemblance to how I was now examining the emotional wiring of my family, discovering which connections were still strong and which had degraded beyond repair. 2 days later, Samantha came to Doris's house for tea. She looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes revealing many sleepless nights. "They have started packing," she told me while stirring honey into her cup. "Mom cries when she thinks no one is watching. Dad stays late at the office even when there's no work. It is terrible, Grandma," I said with deep sincerity. "I am sorry you are caught in all of this, dear." She placed the spoon down with unexpected force on the saucer. Then she said, "Stop it. Call Javier. Cancel the sale." "Would you like me to continue with Maybelle's response?" "It is not that simple. Yes, I have," Samantha insisted. "You are choosing this. You could forgive them." "Forgiveness is not the issue," I explained gently. "I forgive them for what they tried to do, but forgiveness does not mean accepting the same treatment moving forward. It does not mean pretending nothing ever happened." "But they are suffering," she insisted, her young face marked by worry beyond her years. "I know," I nodded. "Actions have consequences, Samantha. That is life. A lesson that your parents never fully grasped, and one that I failed to teach properly. He looked at me with a gaze far too sharp to feel comfortable. "So, is this a lesson?" I replied after reflecting calmly. "No, it is self-preservation. For far too long, I have allowed myself to be diminished in the name of maternal sacrifice. I cannot keep doing that, not for you, not for myself." He repeated, confused. "What would it give you if you let yourself be discarded without consequence? What would that teach you about your own worth over the years? About what you should accept from those who say they love you?" He fell silent, chewing over this new perspective in his mind. "I know it is painful to see," I continued in a soft voice, "but sometimes healing demands discomfort. Your parents need to face the truth of their choices, and so do I." 3 days before the closing, James called me with unexpected news. The Hernandez family wants to make a final visit tomorrow, which is common, but they have also asked if you would be willing to meet with them. They want to learn more about the history of the house. "History," I repeated, surprised. Apparently, Mrs. Hernandez is passionate about preservation. She's interested in the original details, in the renovations you have made over the years. I told them I would check with you. After thinking it over for a moment, I agreed. The meeting was scheduled for the following afternoon. Karen opened the door as I arrived. Her face was tense. "They still haven't come," she said, stepping aside to let me in. The house felt oddly empty, with boxes stacked along the walls and nails exposed where family photos once hung. The furniture remained, but without the everyday items. Everything seemed staged rather than lived in. "They have been busy," I observed. Karen nodded stiffly. "Joel's mother lets us store things in her garage until we decide what to do. Any news about your interviews?" "A possibility at the outpatient surgical center," she admitted reluctantly. "But the salary is lower than at Hill Hospital." We stood awkwardly in the foyer. Decades of shared history suddenly felt insufficient for a natural conversation. I noticed framed photos in a box near the stairs, including one of Karen as a teenager, both of us with arms around my waist, laughing during a beach trip I had saved for months to afford. "You can take any photos you want," Karen said, following my gaze. "We are packing everything for now. We will sort it out later." "Thank you," I replied, though I had not yet decided which memories to keep. The Hernandez family arrived on time, their excitement about the house as strong as at their first visit. Mrs. Hernandez, Emma, insisted I call her. She was particularly eager to see everything. Interested in the original wooden floors and the built-in shelves that Alfonso had crafted before he passed away, James said, "There is so much character in this place," as he gently touched the staircase railing. "It really feels like this home was deeply loved," Karen added, running her fingers over the wooden banister. "It truly was," I confirmed, feeling an unexpected lump in my throat. So very much. We wandered through the house together with Karen quietly following us, sharing little stories about each corner. The kitchen where I taught Karen to bake her father's favorite cookies, the living room window where we watched summer storms, the backyard where Samantha took her first steps. When we reached the small study that was first James's and later mine, Karen paused in front of the window overlooking the magnolia tree I planted the year after Alfonso's death. "This room has something special," Emma observed. "It does," I replied softly. Or it did. Karen made a small sound, perhaps a stifled sob, and quickly left the room. Emma looked at her with concern and whispered, "I hope we have not caused more pain. My husband and I understand this must be a difficult transition for your family." I smiled gratefully at her kindness. Every transition brings its challenges, but sometimes they are necessary for growth. When it was time to say goodbye, Emma held my hands tightly in hers with a spontaneous gesture. "Thank you for creating such a beautiful home. I promise we will take care of it just as you have. Your honesty was like a soothing balm for a wound I had not fully acknowledged before. The fear that selling the house meant erasing everything you had built here, All the love those walls had witnessed weighed heavily. Perhaps the house itself would remember. It would carry the spirit of the life it had sheltered. After they left, I found Karen in the kitchen wrapping cups in newspaper and placing them in a box labeled fragile kitchenware. I said they seemed like good people. She nodded without looking up. The wife had cried when she saw the upstairs room. Apparently, they had been trying to have children for years. "This will be a good home to start their family," I commented. Her hands froze over a blue cup she had had since before she was born. "It was also a good home for our family," she murmured before we ruined it. That simple acknowledgement, the first real admission of responsibility I heard from her, hung between us like a delicate thread, too fragile to close the chasm we created, but too meaningful to ignore. "Yes," I said, "it was." The day of signing arrived with unusual warmth, as if summer had briefly returned to witness this change. I dressed carefully in a sage green dress I had bought years ago for high school graduation. From James, my only concession to the significance of the moment. The path to the front door seemed longer than I remembered, as if each step required intentional effort. Joel was the first to notice me leaving the house carrying a lamp wrapped in newspaper. "So it's done now?" he asked while placing the lamp into the trunk of his sedan. "Yes," I confirmed. "The new owners are the Hernandez family who will move in next week." He nodded with an expression I could not interpret. "Karen is inside finishing packing the kitchen. I have only come for my grandmother's locket," I explained. "It is in the nightstand drawer, of course." He closed the trunk more forcefully than needed. "Well, we won't keep you." I climbed the porch steps, observing the empty hooks where flower pots once hung in summer and wreaths in winter. The door stood open like an exposed wound. Inside, the house smelled of cardboard and dust, the air dense with farewell. I crossed the living room without paying much attention to my surroundings. I passed the dining room where we had shared so many silent dinners in recent years, and arrived at the room that had been mine. There was Karen with her back turned, emptying the last drawer of the dresser. She startled when she saw me in the doorway. "I'm only here for the locket," I said, "the one that belonged to grandmother." "Lucy is on the nightstand." She nodded without a word and stepped aside. I opened the drawer, and there it was, still in its place. A small green velvet case lay untouched among old envelopes and a little box of buttons. I picked it up gently, as if by touching it I could release the weight of countless generations. I turned to leave, but Karen stopped me. "Can we talk? Just for a moment?" I looked at her. She seemed drained, her eyes red and her voice barely a whisper. I hesitated, then nodded. "All right. Just a moment." Inside, the house echoed with a lonely emptiness. Most of the furniture was gone, the walls bare and a lifetime of belongings packed into labeled boxes and empty spaces. Karen was in the kitchen wrapping glasses in newspaper. She glanced up as I entered, her hair tied back in a messy ponytail and dark circles revealing sleepless nights. "Did the sale go through?" she asked, though she clearly already knew. "Yes," I answered a moment ago. She nodded and returned to her task, forcing her focus. "Tomorrow by noon we will be out. The new owners will enjoy their perfect family home." I let the bitter tone of her words pass without comment. I had come for grandmother Elena's locket, something I had promised her. "Your room is nearly empty," she said without meeting my eyes. "Whatever is left is yours to take." I walked through the house, noticing the rectangular paint patches that hadn't faded where pictures once hung, the faint impressions in the carpet where my reading chair stood for decades. In the master bedroom, Until yesterday, the bedroom was left with only the bed frame, stripped of sheets, and the mattress leaned against the wall to make moving easier. The drawer of the nightstand held exactly what I sought. A small velvet pouch containing the silver locket passed down from my grandmother to my mother, and then to me. Inside were tiny photographs of James and Karen as a child, the very same ones I had brought to James's funeral. I placed the locket around my neck, feeling the familiar weight settle on my collarbone like an old friend returning. As I descended the stairs, I overheard Karen and Joel whispering heatedly in the kitchen. Something about storage fees and their mother's limited patience. Their voices dropped silent as I drew near. "I found it," I said, briefly touching the locket. "I am leaving now." Karen stepped into the hallway and asked, "Is that all? You're selling our house and leaving with just a simple goodbye?" I replied quietly, "What would you prefer? A long explanation you've already rejected? An apology for actions I do not regret? What would bring you peace at this moment, Karen?" "Peace." I laughed harshly, without humor. "You destroyed any chance of peace. We are desperately searching for a place to live, our belongings scattered between storage units and Joel's mother's garage, our lives in complete disorder because you could not forgive a mistake." "It was not a mistake," I said. I corrected her gently. It was a startling realization. They showed me exactly how they saw me, as a nuisance to manage instead of a person deserving respect. That is not fair. It simply is not. I placed the suitcase near the stairs, the rent already paid at the residence, every detail arranged to remove me from my home with the least resistance possible. "We thought this was for your own good," Jorge said as he joined us in the hallway. "No," I responded firmly, "it was for their own benefit. They were taking what was mine, my home, my safety, my dignity, just as they have been doing since they arrived, rearranging my kitchen, ignoring my preferences, treating me like a guest in my own house." Carmen blushed, though I could not tell if it was from anger or accepting the truth in my words. I continued, "So this is a punishment. This is a consequence, something neither of you seems quite familiar with." "Where exactly are we supposed to go?" Jorge demanded, raising his voice. "We have nowhere to go, nothing prepared." "You have options," I interrupted. "The same options I would have had if their plan had succeeded. Friends, extended family, temporary places until something permanent came along. The difference being you have resources I never had. 2 possible incomes, professional contacts, a larger support network than just one older friend." "It is not the same," Carmen insisted. "You are right. It is not the same," I replied. "You were given 17 days warning. I received none. We remained silent. 3 individuals joined by blood and by our past, yet separated by differing views on respect and responsibility." Through the open door, I glimpsed Doris waiting calmly in her car, a steady figure amid the chaos. "I should leave," I said at last. "Is that all?" Karen asked once more, her voice slightly trembling. 49 years as your daughter, and it ends this way." I touched the locket I wore around my neck, feeling its familiar shape beneath my fingers. Our relationship does not end, Karen. It is transforming. Whether it survives this change depends entirely on your ability to truly see me as more than just a convenience or an obligation. "What if we do?" Joel asked. "If we manage to see you as you wish, what happens then?" "Then we will start anew," I answered calmly. "Not as before, but as we could be, with boundaries, mutual respect, and honestly recognizing each other's worth." I stepped toward the door, pausing on the threshold that no longer belonged to me, crossing it. "You gave me a suitcase," I said, looking back at them one last time. "I am giving you a door. What happens next is up to you." Without waiting for a response, I went down the porch steps and walked to the car where Doris waited for me. Behind me, I heard the door close. The front door closed with a gentle yet decisive firmness. "How did it go?" Doris asked as I settled into the passenger seat. I touched the locket once again, feeling the weight of what it held, the past it safeguarded, and the future it might one day symbolize. It felt exactly as it should, As we drove away from the curb, I caught a glimpse of movement at the living room window. Karen was watching us leave, her expression unreadable through the glass. I could not tell if she was finally seeing me clearly for the first time or simply witnessing her own security slipping away. But I knew with complete certainty that I was finally seeing myself clearly, not just as a mother, widow, or woman, but as someone with inherent and full worth, deserving respect, thoughtfulness, and dignity, someone who had at last granted herself the gift of farewell. Doris reached over to squeeze my hand as we turned the corner and the house vanished from view. "Where to now?" she asked. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. "Forward," I answered simply. "Just forward. Next, we have 2 amazing stories waiting for you. Just click on the image you want to watch and it will start automatically.